Broadcasting from Salisbury University campus, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7. Putting Delmarva first. Stay tuned for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
The Ocean City Film Festival returns in March. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. It's the third year for the annual event, which will screen more than 100 films across 5 venues from March 8th through the 10th. Over those days, there will be 12 genres, from feature-length to short horror to social commentary. There will be local filmmakers as well as those from across the country participating in the event. And there will be workshops at the Ocean City Center for the Arts. In our studio this morning to take a peek at what we may see is William Strang-Moya. He's the Film Festival's director, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So overall, give me a sense about the kinds of films that you're looking at in terms of what people could see. Any interesting trends that you spotted as you sifted through all those films?
Absolutely. There's a lot of trends, and it's actually hard to narrow down. But we got a really wild program going on from the get-go. I mean, we've had such a variety. 100 films, believe it or not, is actually a lot for a film festival, especially a small one on the Eastern Shore. Relatively small. We're growing. But yeah, I want to say at this point, our TV commercial says we have films from all over the world, films for everyone, and films that can only be seen in Ocean City. So it's all about variety, and that is something we pride ourselves on.
So before we get into some of the films, what kinds of genres are we looking at, and anything stand out?
I don't like to take films under, I mean, I view them more as categories. I'm looking as a programmer to more blur the lines as to what genres are in our coming seasons, but we have 12 different categories, and we have animations, short horror. We're predominantly a short film festival. Short horror, short documentary, social commentary shorts, short films that make you feel good, experimental films, feature films, whatever else is in the program, if you don't mind me looking at this.
Sure, go ahead.
But yeah, like I said, we got all sorts of stuff. Not short, but not feature length. That's one of our unique categories that draws a lot of attention. Dramatic shorts, even music videos. And I think I listed all of them. Short youth films. There we go. That's the last one. And that's a really cool thing, too, being able to showcase emerging filmmakers while also having something like this year we have a gentleman who was featured at Sundance and is actually a Stephen Decatur graduate. So we're bringing all sorts of people together to celebrate this art.
So how did this festival come about?
So in 2017, January, I was on a winter break from college, and that was this horrible time of my senior year where I finally realized, wow, I need to start thinking about a job after school. That's horrible. So I reached out to the Art League of Ocean City. I got in touch with Rena and the whole crowd there, and Rena Thaler's the executive director of the Art League of Ocean City. And I said, hey, I'm a film student. I really care about, working in the community and maybe building something, getting artists together. Can I teach a class about filmmaking at, the Art League of Ocean City? She said, sure, because they never had anything like that. The demand was there. So I did that, and simultaneously, being that it was winter break in college, the mini-mester, I had a friend who was trying to shoot his thesis film that month in Ocean City. So I was both his producer and cinematographer. I pulled everything together, and the last day of me teaching this class in January coincided with our last day of shooting, and a couple things fell through. So I asked Rena if we could shoot a scene of that movie in the Art League of Ocean City. She said sure. And afterwards I had a meeting with her. I said, well, because we shot part of a movie here, do you think we could maybe show the movie here? And she said yeah, and that they were even open to the idea of hosting something like a film festival. So I said, I can do that. And mind you, I have never put on any event like this prior to that moment. She just said, hey, we need someone to do this. And I was like, okay, by all means, I would love to. And 6 months later, we had our first season. We had a surprising audience turnout. Then less than a year from that, we had our March 2018 festival. Our numbers practically doubled. And this year, we're just even bigger than the year before. And it's truly something incredible to have seen grown and, to pour my heart and soul into at this point. So
let's turn to at least the documentaries. The first one we want to take a look at is actually the Ocean City Beach Patrol. It's a documentary. And we tell me a little, first of all, a little bit about that. I mean, it's about an hour long, and it goes the gamut from when they get into training to some of the events that occur to these lifeguards.
It's a really cool movie. The producer director Brett Hammond, he really whipped up a really powerful story. He came to town and he knew that he wanted to make a movie. He knew he wanted to capture a subject that, you know, was both important to the community and I guess not talked about that much. Watching the movie, it made me realize it made me think about things that I would never have considered when it comes to the Ocean City Beach Patrol. So I'm really happy to have it in our program. And after seeing the movie, I know that Brett worked on it for a very long time. I started principal photography, I believe, in 2016, which was really interesting because in 2016 I was an intern at oceancity.com, and I actually also shot a little 2-minute video about the Ocean City Beach Patrol, so I'm pretty sure we were both filming on the same beach at the same time, these different projects. But he started 2016. I believe he finished it in the summer of 2018 because we actually showed an earlier cut of his film at one of our events in August called Art X. And the earlier cut was about an hour 45 minutes, and he cut it down significantly for the festival to about an hour and 9 minutes, I believe. And it's a really powerful story. He's got, start to finish training the recruits, assimilating them from just kids who come to town or all the people that actually get into the Beach Patrol, starting start to finish through training. And then he even interviews, people who were rescued. Those are really, really unique stories about people who were just, in town for the weekend and just... Right. Had some really bad luck in the water.
Right. I think one of them broke their neck and was able to recover.
It's wild.
We'll play a little clip here. This is Sergeant Phillips, who tells a story about a child who was lost.
A 12-year-old boy and his uncle on 137th Street that were swimming when we were off the beach, and the little boy got pulled out in a rip. The uncle tried to hold on to him and he couldn't. And it was right before Labor Day weekend, and obviously he drowned. Sunday or Monday of Labor Day weekend, when I was sitting on 138th Street, I looked out in the ocean, and through my binoculars, myself and one of my beach patrons spotted something floating, and around what was floating were dolphins, and they were jumping around it. We thought it might be the little boy because he hadn't been discovered yet, and it was. And what was really crazy about it was that he stayed in the same area, and that's really unlikely, but that his body after 3 days, I want to say, wasn't touched by anything, and it was almost like the dolphins were protecting him. But it was such a profound experience in my life to go through that and see the family's pain right there. And it was the first experience that I had with death, especially of a child, which is hard. I have 2 daughters of my own now, and I can't imagine that pain, that just feeling that pain, knowing what that family was going through, and we all see things in this job that are hard to see, but we all give 110%, and we put ourselves out there when we go out in huge swells, and you have victims screaming, and you're just trying to get them in and get everybody home, and it's a good day when everybody goes home.
I think one of the interesting things about the film is that obviously they're kids and so on, but in the end there is a seriousness, I think, to the profession that we don't really think about when we see them up there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting to hear the side of the story from, what I thought was the most interesting thing is how, these people, their job is saving lives, and they do it so regularly that you almost take it for granted.
Right.
That this is their job. It's so intense that they have such responsibility over all the people that go in the water, and how they handle it. I don't think. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It seems like the way that the Beach Patrol approached their job, it's you know, they don't think much of it. I mean, obviously they do, because it's so huge. But, you know, they laugh, they joke because they're so used to it. And the people, it's like, you know, they just had their lives saved. That was the biggest thing in the world. And I loved seeing that throughout the various stories in the film.
I want to turn now to the strange fruit on the courthouse lawn, which a lot of people have been talking about. Particularly, this is a Matthew Williams lynching that occurred in the early 1930s. Tell me a little bit about what kinds of things inspired this kind of film. We've talked about, certainly on this show as well as elsewhere, about this particular lynching. Yeah,
no, it's huge in my opinion. Last year, I'm gonna backtrack here. Last year, I had a film that I co-directed with Therese Wise and was produced by Dan O'Hare, and it was about the winder marker on Courthouse Lawn in Salisbury, and you know, a Confederate marker placed exactly where, you know, the second to last lynching in the state of Maryland happened. And that got a lot of people talking, and I'm assuming through the grapevines, it sort of it drew a lot of attention to Matthew Williams. So at one point, the filmmakers reached out to us, or I reached out to them. I honestly don't remember. I just remember when I first heard about this film, I knew I wanted it in the program. And I am very happy that more people are talking about this because, I mean, I think it's very important to acknowledge this history, because when I was working on my film, it's one of the things that still haunts me to this day is in the NAB Center, in the Polly Stewart collection. There's a compilation, a student years ago in the 70s, they had one-on-one interviews with people who were actually attending the lynching of Matthew Williams, and it's something that'll keep you up at night. And I think the fact that an event like that was such a common and accepted thing in American history at a time, that we definitely need to talk about it, because that is wild.
Yeah, right.
So to see student filmmakers, you know, come forward and deliver this story in Salisbury, of all places, I think that's huge, and I'm very happy to give them the platform.
As a matter of fact, well, let's hear a little clip of that film. We have, I think it's Professor Aston Gonzalez, and then Browder Mitchell, who apparently was a reporter at the time of the lynching. We should say that the lynching took place. Williams was accused of shooting his boss. Eventually, he was pulled out of a hospital by a mob and was lynched. And here's a bit of a description of what happened.
In the Maryland, My Maryland image, we see Matthew Williams in a very different way. Depicts Matthew Williams without the straitjacket that he was bound in as he was lynched, although it correctly depicts him as having his eyes being blindfolded, his vision being impaired. We see him actually resisting his lynching, and the sort of strained feet, his toes and feet, as well as his hands, are supposed to demonstrate or display his anguish, his pain, the violence of his lynching. Whereas in the background we see a fire that has broken out, that there are members of the lynch mob with weapons or some kind of instruments held above their heads in opposition to, held in opposition to Matthew Williams.
They cut him down, dragged him by the rope, tied to the back of a truck to a gas station where the body was drenched with gasoline, and then they dragged it over to the Negro section of the Salisbury, where they dragged it around the little streets there and set the body on fire. And then they distributed in the crowd short lengths of the rope for souvenirs, and they cut off his fingers and distributed them.
So when you hear, though, that description of people doing it, particularly the souvenirs, much less dragging the body, what's your reaction to that here now in the 21st century? Your own generation was far removed from these events.
I don't think my generation is far removed from these events, to be honest. Okay. I mean, these are people's grandparents who are impacted by this. Like, there was even it just makes me wonder if these souvenirs, so to speak, like the rope that was used or the toes and fingers that were cut off of Matthew Williams and taken home, were these passed down to kids? Are these on mantles somewhere. I don't think we're removed from that. Like, why would people mutilate someone and keep that as a sentiment, you know?
Right, right.
But I don't think we're detached from it. I mean, I just, why can't we talk about the mass phenomenon of how normal it was for a bunch of people in a community to get together and chop someone up and burn them alive just because they had a different skin color? I don't know. It's just one of the... It's atrocious. Like a group of people committing an act as horrible as some of the worst serial killers. And these people, you know, their kids going on, and it just builds the systemic... I don't know how to manifest my words right now, but yeah. No, I don't think we're detached from it. I believe in systemic oppression.
Right, right, Liz. I mean, yeah. I want to turn, by the way, to Into Silence.
Yeah.
And this is about sexual abuse, particularly of young women. Sometimes, I think, one by their father, other by friends, and so on. Tell me a little bit about at least the producers of this film and the impact you think it has.
I think it's really interesting because, first of all, the subject matter, it's something that I'm sure a lot of people shy away from as filmmakers. And to see this kind of story come from a local source, that's really cool. That's another reason why, you know, we love to give the platform to local filmmakers. The director, producer, Eric, I finally met him recently. I've been talking to him because, you know, he's in the program. Oh no, I'm excited to have him. What can I say? I didn't see the movie. A screening judge watched it for us and accepted it. But he's been moving this around for the past year. I know it played at the Senator in Baltimore. It's gotten some acclaim. And, you know, it's one of those things where you meet someone through the film festival. We kind of built it, and these people came out of the woodwork. So they've been making films, Eric and his wife, in the region for about 20 years now, I understand. So they're going to be a part of our program, and I'm sure you'll be seeing them at our monthly film nights in the future in terms of showing their work, because they have other stuff aside from their End the Silence documentary.
I mean, and I must admit, I mean, I think it's a little over an hour long, and sometimes I think it is difficult to watch or to hear some of it on. Let's hear a clip of Tia Camper. She's one of the people who was molested.
During the summer, when I was about to go into the 10th grade, I remember how weird he was acting. He was acting really different. And it's like he was really trying to get me drunk. This was my first time ever having liquor. Ever. So, when I woke up the next morning, I remember getting in the shower and I kept saying, I feel different. I feel funny. I knew that something just wasn't right with my body. But when I walked into the kitchen after taking my shower, he was sitting there eating shrimp, offering crabs to my little brother. And it seemed like everything was okay. Everything was normal except for my body. But when I had gotten home that same day, he sent me a text message saying, "You're nasty when you had that liquor up in you." And I felt like, oh my God, what happened? What did I do? Just come back. I'm gonna give you some more to drink, and I'm gonna tell you what you did. So I felt like I lost a part of me that I held so sacred. I had plans to save myself from my husband. I felt like I was stripped of my dreams for me, my plans. But I felt like it was my fault because I should have never been drinking. I should have said no when he told me that I could sleep in his room.
And we should mention, by the way, this is all part of the Protect Our Girls campaign, which, and it was, as they say, a remarkable film, including discussions about healing, about forgiveness, but also trying to deal with the aftermath of such a horrendous event to take place at such a young age. I want to end on maybe a bit of a beat note, which is 5 Days in August. That's the White Marlin Open. Tell me a little bit about that.
5 Days in August is a really cool movie. I think it was made by Nicholas Ruff. I believe he shot it in 2017. and it pretty much follows 2 or 3 different boats that I guess went on the White Marlin Open, you know, competed in the tournament, and it just tells their story, really captures, I guess, what it's like to be on those boats.
And certainly the people, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool slice of life, so to speak, and I'm excited. It's one of those movies that you'll watch, and I think in maybe like 30 years, it'll be really cool to look back and just look at this product of its time. But I think it's really exciting, and when we got sent that movie, I mean, how could we not feature it? It's an Ocean City movie. This is a huge thing that comes to town, and everyone knows about it. It packs the place for the weekend, so I know this film had a premiere at the White Marlin Club at some point in the past year, but I'm excited to bring it to town again and, you know, get people talking.
I must admit, by the way, as particularly watching like the filming, and there was a lot of work that went into this. I mean, not only did they had all the shots in terms of obviously being on the boat, they had underwater shots of the fish and themselves. I mean, it was really a very complicated film to produce, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on their time constraint. I can't imagine being on the film crew who has to wake up an hour or two before the fishermen have to wake up, which is already ungodly early, and just you know, going out on a boat with all that equipment, especially when I believe there's a scene in the movie where a boat has engine troubles and they have to move, you know. It must have been a grueling process, but in the end I think they made a really unique film that tells a fun story.
As a matter of fact, yeah, but I think the principal, boat on it in the film is The Stalker, zoned by Curtis McCumber, I guess it is, in which he tried, and he talks about how expensive this all is. I mean, this is not a cheap thing, and obviously in the end he doesn't quite make it in terms of winning anything. But you do catch, in many ways, you catch not only the downtime, which they talk about, geez, really a lot of sitting around just sort of waiting, but also when they do get a bite, there's this adrenaline apparently that takes over. Let's hear a little bit about the clip, and we end with Corey Lednam, who is, I believe, the first mate.
There he is! He's on me! He's on me! Eat it! Come! Eat it! You got him on? Oh yeah, come on! Don't slow my teasers off! Whatever you do, slow my teasers down so they get missing. Other side! Put the hearing aids on. That's a white. Yeah, that sucker's holding girth all the way to the tail, dude. Be gentle with her. That could be a 68 fat one, dude. Somebody grab the tail. Somebody grab the tail and help him.
There's nothing like it. There's no other adrenaline rush like it. It will get your heart racing. Time literally slows down, and you feel like you're moving slower, but you gotta be fast, you gotta get on them, you gotta hook them.
So does that make you want to get out there and and see whether you can grab one or not?
I don't see why not. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on boats, and I don't fish. But you know, that movie did excite me enough to maybe like, hey, maybe I would love to go filming on a boat sometime.
Right. And they're real characters. I mean, some of the captains. I mean, they're just amazing.
Yeah, that's what I liked most, is seeing all these the stereotypical like Ocean City fishermen, watermen types, and it's really cool. And I actually I knew Kurt Macomber before seeing the movie. I actually was in the Boy Scouts with his son Colby.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Troop 261. So I was pleasantly surprised to see him starring in the movie.
So if people go to this festival, what should they expect to see, and how do they navigate? You say it's more than 100 films. How do you navigate that? I mean, we've got a little program here, but I mean.
Well, I would say, I mean, yeah, you're going to see more than 100 films. We got so much stuff. There's got to be something you like. There's going to be a lot of instances that you'll have to make a choice between certain movies, but I mean, that's what it is. That's how it is with the film festival. And like I said, it's all about variety. We got so much stuff, and we even have workshops, which is really cool.
Yeah, tell me a bit about those.
We have 3 different workshops, one of which is a panel with some members of the Maryland Film Office, so you can get a lot of insight from, like, you know, I think it'll help a lot of filmmakers who are learning how to market and network and, you know, become more involved in a regional sense. And we have 2 other workshops about making films. The first one is making short films with Rob Waters. Rob is a very talented filmmaker out of Lewis, Delaware. He has a company called W Films. And he supported us for a long time. We showed one of his movies last year that got a lot of attention regionally. It was called Pietas. It was about this guy having a conversation with this kid, and it was really, really intense. Rob's a phenomenal director. But yeah, he's really good at short films. He excels at that. He first got into filmmaking from entering whatever Dogfish Head's beer and film festival was, and he won it. He had this really cool movie about a crash test dummy who got blown up. A bunch of unfortunate stuff happened to him, but yeah, he's going to be teaching about a 2-hour workshop about crafting a short film. He's done that for us before, and we like him so much that we're going to bring him back. And the other one is by a gentleman named Rob Bell. We met him at the first Ocean City Film Festival. He came out, he showed a movie. It won Audience Choice. It was a documentary about the Bernie Sanders movement in Philadelphia and what happened to the supporters once the DNC happened, and pretty much how a lot of supporters actually turned to Trump afterwards. So that got a lot of attention our first season. It won Audience Choice. Then he came back last year with a movie called Hoop. It wasn't a documentary. It was like a sort of a social commentary feature film, very inspired by French New Wave cinema, about a young man in Philadelphia who was trying to become a basketball player. And it was a really cool movie. People loved it. He packed the house as usual. So this year, I figured, hey, let's bring him on. Let's have him give a workshop about crafting a feature film, because obviously he does a really good job in documentary and he does a really good job in fiction narrative. So he's going to tell people, you know, his approach to writing and, you know, the craft. And on top of that, he's a writer. Ooh, God, I don't remember what he writes for, but he's writing movie reviews for like Netflix or something, and he's just keeping busy, and we're happy to have a professional like him on board with us.
Well, we're talking about the Ocean City Film Festival, which is in March 8th through the 10th. There will be over 100 films across 5 venues and 12 genres. Lots to choose from. Interesting workshops we've been talking about as well. And we've been talking with William Strang-Moya. He is the film festival's director, and we appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us.
Thank you so much.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for watching Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Production and audio engineering by Chris Rank. Hosted by Don Rush. For podcasts, visit delmarvapublicradio.net or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast on iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on Pack 14.